So, ladies and gentlemen, we've been having a ton, a ton of conversations about wide receivers, who the Cowboys can add, who the Cowboys could go after, why the Cowboys should add this player, why they shouldn't, what is the holdup. We've gone through all that. We're in stalemate mode right now. We're waiting to see what the Joneses could do. Are they waiting? From apparently with what we're being told, it's just really the due diligence part of things. And now I wanted to shift the attention to another group of pass catchers, the tight end room. There have been people talking about it on Twitter and, how this tight end room is going to look. Should the Cowboys go after a tight end in the draft? But an interesting question that was really posed was by one person that commented on my videos, because I didn't really think about it, but there's been studies done on it and stats and all that other stuff. And what we're going to talk about is the necessity of good tight end play to get you over the top. Like, is that something that needs to happen for the Cowboys to get where they need to go? So with all that out of the way, let's dive straight into it. Now, before we begin today's video, if you guys could do me a favor and hit the like button, that'd be awesome and greatly appreciated. Also, subscribe if you're new and hit the notification bell as well, because we've dropped out of the 80 percentile. We're now into the 79.5 percentile, so we're in the upper 70s. You guys continue to subscribe, so I greatly appreciate that once again. And by the way, for those that keep coming back and you're not subscribed, I kind of recommend you do so, because if you find me that interesting to come back and watch me, I think you would want to subscribe so you could stick around. Or you just think I'm weird and you just want to come back on an occasion or two. But I digress there. So we need to talk about the comment that was left by Race Legend 79, and he spoke about, hey, do you think that it's necessary to have tight ends that Dak can go to? And we kind of saw the Cowboys get into their bag with the tight end group, especially the young guys, and what they can bring to the table. And that's something that we're kind of starting to see the NFL move towards, the tight end being a mismatch nightmare at the receiving end of things. Like, you're looking at Travis Kelce, right, which I understand he's a one of one, and you kind of saw that earlier with Rob Gronkowski, who he is a one of one, and what he could have done if he continued to play, and, what he did during his career. But the tight end position is a lot different than what it was before. And I think the Dallas Cowboys have a type of tight end that they really do like, and we've seen it since, Jason Witten's been there, and even for longer. But for me, I've said it. If you follow me, you know I'm a big sucker for tight ends that can stretch the field. Now, Schultz was kind of a tweener. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't in that elite category that you would want your guys to be in if you're going to pay him that kind of money. Like, there's no question that Dalton Schultz is a top 15, top 10 tight end, however you feel about whoever at the tight end position, but he was good for what he was. Would I say he was really good? But, there were things that you can knock on him. But the key thing is, okay, what can the Cowboys do to make their offense more explosive and maybe not have to rely on more wide receivers? Is there a way we can use the tight ends as a safety blanket? And yeah, you got Jake Ferguson, who's a nice up-and-coming tight end alongside Peyton Hendershot. What I think fans have to look at, and I think this is where we're having the dialogue about, do the Cowboys draft a tight end, is how high is the ceiling for Ferg and Peyton Hendershot? Like, do you think you can get good of enough production? I think you can. But I really wanted to go through the numbers of, okay, is it something to where you need an elite tight end or elite production from the tight end position to go all the way? So what I did was I went through overthecap.com to see who the most salaries going to the highest paid tight ends. I'll throw Dalton Schultz in there for 2022. And by the way, all the stats that I have in front of me are from the 2022 season and all these players that have been paid. We're going to go through that. And then there was an article that was actually linked to me. Someone DM'd it to me about Super Bowl winners and them having tight ends as their, leading receiving threats. So let's go through the stats first. We'll discuss that, and then we'll get into the article. So I got the stats posted up for you on the screen. So to start things off, Darren Waller, as of this point in time, is the highest paid tight end in the league at $17 million. And by the way, he was one hell of a freak when it comes to what he did in Las Vegas for, if you know where he came from, I believe he was with Baltimore. He was at receiver, and then he moved to tight end, and he's just one hell of a tight end. And I would definitely have loved to have him on the Cowboys, but, with the injuries and all that other stuff and the price tag, I don't know. So he was getting paid $17 million, dollars, and with it, he had 388 catches, 3 touchdowns, and he was targeted 43 times and caught 28, catches off of that. Then you go to the next guy below that, and that's George Kittle. And this is where you kind of start to see like what really good tight ends are paid. So George Kittle, by the way, his team was in the NFC Championship game. $15 million, 765 yards, 11 touchdowns. You have 60 receptions and on 86 targets. Now keep in mind, in terms of games played, you could see that there. Darren Waller only played 9 games, but still, point being, even if you stretch that out and you want to be like, well, that's half a season, it's still not really good for $17 million. And, with George Kittle, he played 15. And by the way, these are all regular season stats. Then you go to Travis Kelce, the best tight end in football. Travis Kelce on the winning Super Bowl team, getting paid $14 million, 1,338 yards, 12 touchdowns. He had a monster 152 targets and 110 receptions. Like, that's anomalous for any tight end, to say the least. And like I said, Travis Kelce is a one of one, so I don't look at him as this, oh, he's just another tight end. No, he is like on tight end Mount Rushmore, arguably. And then, he played all 17 games. So the way I look at it is, holy crap, but Travis Kelce is a featured part of the Kansas City offense. But moving on, Dallas Goedert from the Philadelphia Eagles, who lost the Super Bowl, $14 million APY, 702 yards, 3 touchdowns, on 69 targets, nice, 55 receptions, and he only played 12 games. Then you look at Mark Andrews, a team that made the playoffs as a wild card team, and I believe they lost to the Bengals. Then you have $14 million, 847 yards, 5 touchdowns, 113 targets, 73 catches on 15 games. And in reference to Dalton Schultz, who was getting paid $10 million on that franchise tag, and the Cowboys were looking to pay him, he had 89 targets, 57 receptions, 5 touchdowns, and 577 yards, and he played 15 games. So when you look at that, you kind of can see the upper echelon of tight ends. They aren't producing a whole lot, and as I look back at it, really you have Travis Kelce and then all the other dudes. But what I think is important is that the key thing when you have the list of guys that I have in front of them is they're mismatch nightmares. I don't think Dalton Schultz is a mismatch nightmare. I think that he is a guy that is in the top 10 of tight ends, but he is not those guys, if that makes any sense. Okay, he's good, but he's not upper level. And of course, I can't compare anybody to Travis Kelce or anybody's production to Travis Kelce because, again, this dude's on a whole nother plane of existence. But if you want to talk about like a George Kittle, or you want to talk about Darren Waller or Dallas Goedert, these guys are upper level tight ends that make impacts on the team. And I think that with the Eagles didn't have the offense go through Dallas Goedert. Rather, they used him as a part of it, and he gave them solid production there. For the money, I would argue no. That's just my opinion, but you could disagree with me. I think with the tight end position, it's one of those like with running back and others. Unless you have an elite player at that position group, again, you can take quarterback and throw it out the window. We're just talking about other elite positions. Unless you're having an elite player at that position, you can just go draft another one, or you can try to pay them with what the market says for that kind of caliber of player. So, realistically, the Dallas Cowboys, I think, need to look at the tight end position more. And that was something we were kind of getting frustrated. Well, for me, that was where it was like, okay, we had these young tight ends, and then you stopped using them. Now, granted, Lamb came, alive towards the tail end of the season as a bona fide wide receiver one, that all-pro kind of guy. But, like, you're not going to get that at the tight end position unless you draft an elite dude or you go sign someone or you trade for someone, whatever the case may be. So what I wanted to do is now talk about Super Bowl results when it comes to a team and the tight end. So I'm going to read an article that was sent to me, and then we're going to further discuss. So when it comes down to it, there has been a study done where it looks like that teams that have a great tight end on their roster typically have an advantage in the big game. This research pulls data from every Super Bowl opponent since the first big game. I'm most interested in scenarios where a Super Bowl's contender tight end led the team during the regular season in receptions and or receiving yards. Essentially, did the passing attack run through the tight end more than any other player? If so, how did this correlate with Super Bowl results? For example, tight end John Mackey led the Baltimore Colts in 1968 with 45 catches. His Colts lost to the Jets in that year's Super Bowl. The next occurrence of that 8 years later took place when the Oakland Raiders' Dave Casper led his team with 53 catches, and the Raiders went on to win Super Bowl 11 against the Vikings. Now, through Super Bowl 56, 16 teams have competed with a tight end who's led that team in receptions or receiving yards during the regular season. Interestingly, half of those teams have prevailed, and naturally the other have lost. That's crazy. Possibly more interestingly enough, when a tight end has led his team only in receptions, not receiving yards, that Super Bowl contender has won only 2 of 6 big games, 33%. But when a tight end has led his team in receiving yards, they've won 6 of 10 Super Bowls. There are opportunities and challenges for teams that lean relatively heavily on their star tight end. One big question is whether defenses are able to clamp down on the tight end, forcing the opposing team to focus on potentially lesser receivers. Yes, easier said than done, but the data on this front is fascinating. When one of these 16 team-leading tight ends has scored in the Super Bowl, their team has gone on to win 5 out of 1 times. Conversely, when the star tight end has been held out of the end zone, the team has gone on to go 3-7. In fact, these scoreless tight end teams have gone 1-5 in Super Bowls this century. The only time a scoreless tight end has prevailed was in Super Bowl 35 when Shannon Sharp mustered 1 catch for 5 yards and the Ravens 34-7 stopping up the Giants. And look, the fact of the matter is that do I think that the Cowboys need like a superstar tight end to win? No, I don't think they are. Now, the data suggests that you need to get good tight end production. That's kind of where I think the league is going. And the Dallas Cowboys have an opportunity to possibly take a tight end in this draft that could fit the mold of that, but I don't think they're going to do that. And I pose the question to you, do you think the Cowboys need an elite tight end to win? Do you think it would help? Well, I think it would help Dak Prescott. What I think the Cowboys sincerely need to do is they need to load up this offense with mismatch nightmares. I think that if you go get, hypothetically, a DeAndre Hopkins or a Brandon Cooks, that opens up more mismatches for you. And then if you draft a guy at the tight end position that can be a receiving threat, you got yourself an offense that can really take it to town on people. Now, with all that out of the way, I think that we have to consider the options of, okay, can Peyton and Ferguson handle the load? And I think they can, but again, that's where, when we had the draft where we took Dalton Kincaid, a lot of people were like, why are we taking a tight end? This doesn't make any sense. I think you have to look to upgrade at every position, regardless of what it is. And if you can get a player that you can say is better than what you have at that position group, I don't have a problem with that, but you have to make it make sense, right? So to kind of wrap up this whole thing in soliloquy that was put out, I think that the Dallas Cowboys need to use their tight ends more, but not to fit the volume and to make a check mark. What they need to do is be able to create those mismatches on the offensive side of the ball that allow for them to flourish. That's the thing, is like, it's not that Travis Kelce gets all those yards and stuff like that because of the stats and stuff like that. It's because he's being schemed open. He's being schemed to do these things, and that's the main difference, ladies and gentlemen, is that I believe you don't need to be dependent on tight ends, or you need to have a tight end necessarily. What I think needs to happen is you on the offensive side of the ball need to schematically take what's been given to you and pick it apart, rather than just sitting there and doing the same stuff over again, or just not knowing what you're doing. So I'm hoping that's what's going to happen with Mike McCarthy and company at the implementation of the West Coast offense here, or some iteration of it, and then we go from there. But please, Tell me what you guys think down below. I think it's an interesting conversation to have, and, it's a bit of a deviation from the, oh my God, the Cowboys are interested in a wide receiver, blah, 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 blah. I'd rather go with something different, and honestly, it's refreshing to have this type of conversation. So, with that being said, guys, if you did enjoy this, please leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and hit the notification bell. I will catch you guys in the next video. So with that out of the way, this is Space Couple Media signing out. Have a good one. Goodbye.